So, welcome back, and we have been discussing about what Christianity, with its 2.2 billion people, can do in solving the ecological crisis. Pope is suggesting so many solutions in the international level, local level, individual level, also in political and economy level. He is trying to give some beautiful advice. In paragraph number 189, politics must not be subject to the economy, nor should the economy be subject to the dictates of an efficiency-driven paradigm of technocracy. Today, in view of the common good, there is urgent need for politics and economics to enter into a frank dialogue in the service of life, especially human life. Because so far, politics was blaming economy, and economy was blaming politics, and they were not coming to consensus, and they were not taking responsibility, and they were shredding away the responsibility, blaming each other. So that is what Pope is concerned. So for the betterment and for the common good, for the betterment of humanity, you should enter into dialogue and you should clear all the necessary doubts, and you should clear the way and pave the way for the fulfillment of our society. Production is not always rational and is usually tied to economic variables which assign to products a value that does not necessarily correspond to their real worth. The problem of the real economy is not confronted with vigor, yet it is the real economy which makes diversification and improvement in production possible, helps companies to function well, and enables small and medium businesses to develop and create employment. So Pope is really appreciating economical efforts like creating businesses, like generating work. Lot of things economy is trying for the benefit of the society. So Pope is pointing out they are doing wonderful work. Politics should encourage them, and politics should guide them instead of dominating them. And also they can direct them to produce good products which don't pollute and harm the environment. You should encourage economy to produce renewable based products like solar energy, wind energy, water energy. They don't pollute at all. They are forever, you can use them without polluting the atmosphere. So new technologies, politics should encourage, which does not harm the environment. And Pope is also talking about science, dialoguing with religion. For the past 500 years, you know what happened? We thought we are not going to contact science because science is going to damage and destroy religion. So that was the mindset for the past 500 years. But now Pope is removing that, and he is inviting religion to dialogue with science. In fact, Laudato Si document borrows information heavily from science. Pope is depending on scientific evidence, so he is building his religious argument on the basis of science. So I think Pope has really shown how to dialogue with science. So Laudato Si is an outcome of the dialogue between science and religion. Paragraph number 201, Pope writes as follows: the majority of people living on our planet profess to be believers. This should spur religions to dialogue among themselves for the sake of protecting nature, defending the poor, and building networks of respect and fraternity. Dialogue among the various sciences is likewise needed, since each can tend to become enclosed in its own language. While specialization leads to a certain isolation and the absolutization of its own field of knowledge, this prevents us from confronting environmental problems effectively. An open and respectful dialogue is also needed between the various ecological movements, among which ideological conflicts are not infrequently encountered. The gravity of the ecological crisis demands that we all look to the common good, embarking on a path of dialogue which demands patience, self-discipline, and generosity, always keeping in mind that realities are greater than ideas. Actually, we are sitting in a center of dialogue and transparency. So here, many religions have come to dialogue for the common good. That is the point. We are doing this not for self-interest. That is wrong. We are doing it for the common good of the planet, of the universe, of the cosmos. So that is what we are doing. So this place has been doing it beautifully about interfaith dialogue, so on and so forth. But we can also include other scientific religions, because science is also a kind of religion now. So other scientific fractions we have not yet made any effort to dialogue. So we should bring scientists also, the different field, mathematicians, biologists, ecologists, environmentalists, NGO groups. Lot of fractions are there. That is also a field of interfaith dialogue. We can bring them here to discuss and come for consensus for the sake of common good. We are bringing all of them, and we are making these kind of efforts in view of common good. So we have to make extraordinary efforts, because we should use every aspect available in the society to solve the ecological crisis. That is so urgent, so important. We can't reject anything. We should include everything in the sense of awareness and urgency. Very, very urgent. We don't have any time to lose. At last, I want to end the Christian approach by stating that Pope Francis thinks that only three things are going to solve the ecological crisis. It is not technology, it is not politics, it is not economy. All right? Because we have been imagining so far, only these three things are going to solve the ecological crisis: economy, politics, and technology. This is what we have been brainwashed to believe. But now Pope Francis is rejecting all the three, but he goes for these three: ecological education, ecological spirituality, ecological lifestyle. So this is what is going to change the present crisis or the situation. So beautiful paragraphs on ecological education. We need to read that in order to understand. Ecological education can take place in a variety of settings: at school, in families, in the media, in catechesis, and elsewhere. Good education plants seeds when we are young, and these continue to bear fruit throughout life. Here, though, I would stress the great importance of the family, which is the place in which life, the gift of God, can be properly welcomed and protected against the many attacks to which it is exposed, and can develop in accordance with what constitutes authentic human growth. In the face of the so-called culture of death, the family is the heart of the culture of life. In the family, we first learn how to show love and respect for life. We are taught the proper use of things, order and cleanliness, respect for the local ecosystem, and care for all creatures. In the family, we receive an integrated education which enables us to grow harmoniously in personal maturity. These simple gestures of heartfelt courtesy help to create a culture of shared life and respect for our surroundings. Another paragraph on religious commitment to ecological education. Here it is very personal to religious congregations like Oblates of Mary Immaculate, Salesians, Jesuits. Pope is giving this exhortation or teaching very personally. Political institutions and various other social groups are also entrusted with helping to raise people's awareness. So too is the church. All Christian communities have an important role to play in ecological education. It is my hope that our seminaries and houses of formation will provide an education in responsible simplicity of life, in grateful contemplation of God's word, and in concern for the needs of the poor and the protection of the environment. Because the stakes are so high, we need institutions empowered to impose penalties for damage inflicted on the environment. But we also need the personal qualities of self-control and willingness to learn from one another. Then comes the second force, ecological spirituality. In para number 216, Pope writes as follows: the rich heritage of Christian spirituality, the fruit of 20 centuries of personal and communal experience, has a precious contribution to make to the renewal of humanity. Here, I would like to offer Christians a few suggestions for an ecological spirituality grounded in the convictions of our faith, since the teachings of the gospel have direct consequences for our way of thinking, feeling, and living. More than in ideas or concepts as such, I am interested in how such a spirituality can motivate us to a more passionate concern for the protection of our world. A commitment this lofty cannot be sustained by doctrine alone, without a spirituality capable of inspiring us, without an interior impulse which encourages, motivates, nourishes, and gives meaning to our individual and communal activity. When we talk about ecological spirituality, Pope is recommending, ecotheology. The way how a Christian feels and acts depends on his ecotheological education and also theological basis for environmental action. All these disciplines are absolutely necessary. Eco-spirituality course, eco-theology course, environmental ethics course, agrarian theology course, and lot of other things are absolutely necessary in order to achieve ecological spirituality. Because ecological education alone is not enough. It should be enforced with the spiritual perspective. Then ecological education will be more effective because it is backed up by spiritual force. God wants us to do. Jesus wants us to do. All the gods are willing this work to be done by humans. That is stewardship. Then people do it. So that is the force. That is what ecological spirituality is all about. Next paragraph, Pope calls it ecological conversion. Ecological spirituality should be based on ecological conversion. Paragraph number 217. The external deserts in the world are growing because the internal deserts have become so vast. For this reason, the ecological crisis is also a summons to profound interior conversion. It must be said that some committed and prayerful Christians, with the excuse of realism and pragmatism, tend to ridicule expressions of concern for the environment. Others are passive. They choose not to change their habits and thus become inconsistent. So what they all need is an ecological conversion, whereby the effects of their encounter with Jesus Christ become evident in their relationship with the world around them. Living our vocation to be protectors of God's handiwork is essential to a life of virtue. It is not an optional or a secondary aspect of our Christian experience. The third one is ecological lifestyle or ecological habits. What are they? They are a kind of habits you should cultivate to protect the environment. For example, we have been washing or brushing our teeth, opening the faucet. The water is going on. To wash your mouth, you have already wasted 40 liters of water. This is what most people do. But the new ecological lifestyle is you close the faucet, you take 1 liter of water in a container and try to wash or brush your teeth. And also instead of opening the water, shower, run the water for your bath, you measure the water in a bucket and take bath. So that is the lifestyle. And also buying. Don't buy everything. What is necessary you buy. And instead of using your own cars, you use public transportation. Instead of using all the lights, use, if they are necessary, maybe one light is enough. And we don't need fans today, so we switched off. That's a lifestyle. So you have to cultivate ecological lifestyle in order to preserve energy or fuel or extra spending, etc., etc. Paragraph number 26. A change in lifestyle would bring healthy pressure to bear on those who wield political, economic, and social power. This is what consumer movements accomplish by boycotting certain products. They prove successful in changing the way businesses operate, forcing them to consider their environmental footprint and their patterns of production. When social pressure affects their earnings, businesses clearly have to find ways to produce differently. This shows us the great need for a sense of social responsibility on the part of consumers. Purchasing is always a moral and not simply economic act. Today, in a word, the issue of environmental degradation challenges us to examine our lifestyle. Here is paragraph number 203, talks about our lifestyle, the change of our lifestyle. Since the market tends to promote extreme consumerism in an effort to sell its products, people can easily get caught up in a whirlwind of needless buying and spending. Compulsive consumerism is one example of how the techno-economic paradigm affects individuals. Romano Guardiani had already foreseen this. The gadgets and technique forced upon him by the patterns of machine production and of abstract planning mass man accepts quite simply. They are the forms of life itself. To either a greater or lesser degree, mass man is convinced that his conformity is both reasonable and just. This paradigm leads people to believe that they are free as long as they have the supposed freedom to consume. But those really free are the minority who wield economic and financial power. Amid this confusion, postmodern humanity has not yet achieved a new self-awareness capable of offering guidance and direction, and this lack of identity is a source of anxiety. We have too many means and only a few insubstantial ends. So Pope Francis is calling for bold cultural revolution. We know, we already read that paragraph, number 114. So what is that revolution is all about? Here are some examples I try to give you so that you can understand what bold cultural revolution is all about. A shift from anthropocentrism to biocentrism, a shift from steward to servant, a shift from greed to need, a shift from consumption to compassion, a shift from rationalism to mysticism, a shift to democracy to cosmic democracy, a shift from dominion to creation-centered spirituality, a shift from capitalism to egalitarianism. And also bold cultural revolution, I want to compare with agricultural revolution and industrial revolution. So we abbreviated industrial revolution into IR, agricultural revolution into AR, and bold cultural revolution is BCR. All right? So now, agricultural revolution, it increased population. Industrial revolution, steam engine driven by technological advances. Industrial revolution, shift towards fossil fuel. Industrial revolution, a shift towards consumption. But BCR, bold cultural revolution, will dramatically alter population trends. Bold cultural revolution, use of new technologies, so economy does not destroy earth. Bold cultural revolution is a shift away from fossil fuels. BCR is about shift away from consumption. So these are some examples. So Pope Francis wrote in 2001 or 2, I don't know, he wrote this profound, beautiful, insightful quote. If you want to cultivate peace, protect creation. In other words, if you want to cultivate love, equality, equity, mercy, justice, which is an inclusive term, peace is an inclusive term for all these qualities. So if you want to cultivate peace, protect creation. So my dear brothers, we have been discussing about two premises or two pillars of ecotheology for the past 2 days. The first one was a thorough understanding of the immanence of God in creation. And the second premise or second pillar was nature of humans in relation with the remainder of creation. Today we are going to discuss about the role of the church in ecology. Okay? Role of each Christian in ecology. Role of religions in ecology. You can understand on this premises about the discussion what we are going to do right now. So the church and ecology. So far, we have been discussing about the possibility of harmonizing our efforts with other religions. So we discussed about Islam, We discussed about Hinduism, we discussed about Buddhism, and also Christianity. So now we are going to discuss this issue on eco-theological grounds. So that is what we are concerned about next 30 minutes, I believe. Closely related to the use of oikos in the New Testament are the cognate words steward, oikonomos, and stewardship, oikonomia. So I already explained. Ecology, it comes from the Greek word called oikos, which means house. So here, steward also called oikonomos. Same word. Root is oikos. So steward is oikonomos or economer. You remember economer? In our religious houses, we call a procurator or a economer. So oikonomia, economos. So one who is taking care of the house, all the expenditures. And stewardship, also known as oikonomia, that is called stewardship. That is in general, collectively, 2.2 billion Christians, they are engaged in the business of stewardship. It's a large institution. It's a huge, big, multinational corporation which is engaged in stewardship business. Actually, they refer to the person and the task of managing the household. That is what theologian Gottsman in 1976 in his book, he notes that the terms were used in secular Greek to denote the arrangements of components of the household, such as the stewards responsible for the property, the food, the finances, and other specific spheres. These stewards were usually recruited from among the slaves during Christ's time. All those people, what we hear in the gospel, the faithful steward, Jesus tells, give the account to another steward. All of them were slaves. But they were looking after all the sectors of food and the finances, and they were maintaining everything. So it is an example, Father Brito here, right now he is the oikonomos, isn't it? So he is taking care of the food, other administration, finances, etc., etc. Only one thing, he is not a slave. Yeah? But in those days, they were slaves. So this is the biblical time it was practiced. Yeah, that is very nice to know. In the New Testament, the term is also used to refer to the care for household food. That is Luke 12, verse 42. And the Lord said, who then is the faithful and sensible steward, whom his master will put in charge of his servants to give them their rations at the proper time? See, they were looking after food. And also finances. The Gospel of St. Luke, chapter 16, 2. And having called them, Jesus said to him, what is this I hear concerning you? Give the account of your stewardship, for you are not able to manage any longer. Luke 16, 2. In connection with the household of God, St. Paul refers to himself as a steward of the mysteries of God. That is in 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 1. This then is how you ought to regard us as stewards of Christ, and as those entrusted with the mysteries God has revealed. 1 Corinthians chapter 4. and verse 1. This implies a spiritual responsibility for the gospel. So these are the references how steward was described by Jesus himself. So we are entrusted with the same task, taking care of feeding other creatures, not only us. Find out whether all creatures are getting their food in balance. Are we stealing the food from them like we stole a lot of food from the oceans, from forest? We need to leave some food for them. And finances. Today only we are concerned about our own growth, our own economy, our own technology. No, we should be in balance. We shouldn't increase and they should decrease. We should be in balance, in sustainable terms. Again, sustainable development between us, between the natural world. There should be always balance and also accountability. So we are accountable. Planet Earth is copyrighted space. We think there is no copyright. That is how we have been acting. We thought that planet Earth doesn't have any police. There is no police station. You can do anything. Any crime you can commit against the natural world. So that was the mindset what we had. But now we know that everything is copyrighted. There is a Father, one who defends them with justice. Yeah, he rules them with justice and love and empathy. So there is copyright. So you need to be brought to justice and accountability. There is no escape from that. We believe that an ecological theology includes the understanding that God, the Creator, has entrusted His creation to the stewardship of humanity. Yes, such a big, trustworthy mission God has given to us. It is like a huge ship, and you are the captain, and you are the pilots, and you are the master of this whole planet, and you are driving it. It is not a car, it is not a motorcycle. You are driving the whole cosmos and the planet. Such a big responsible job we have given by God Himself. Christians, as the recipients of God's grace, have a special calling to manage well what He has given. St. Peter, in the first letter of Peter, chapter 4:10, he writes, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. Based on the etymology of the terms and the statements of Scripture, it is possible to state our role in this manner. This is the equation. It looks like a mathematical equation, or like, what is his name? Isaac Newton, or on gravity, or what is relativity, that equation, no? Einstein, E is equal to mc squared. So that is the kind of equation you find here. See here, Christian, steward, ecologist. So this is applicable not only to priests and bishops and popes. It's applicable to all the 8 billion people on the planet, especially 2.2 billion Christians. This is the title, CSE. So that is the title. Christian, steward, ecologist. CSE. An understanding of the ecological implications of the metaphor of stewardship has been in ascendancy in recent years. So everybody talks about it now in the church. Everybody wants to define what is a steward, what is the stewardship. All over the world, people are discussing about these terms: oikos, oikonomos, oikonomia. This is the major discussion going on. Writers like Wilkinson, Hall, Santmere, they find the steward a commendable self-designation for Christians. It avoids the most objectionable aspects of some terms by which we designate ourselves, for example, the elect or the saved, which is smack of superiority or false security, and communicates a non-authoritarian character which is compatible with the theology of the cross. In other words, Christians are obsessed with good terminology like the elect. All right? We are special. We are set apart. That is the word we use. We are saved. Imago Dei, image of God. Little less than an angel. All these titles, they don't do any good. Only it inflates your ego. Oh, I am a big, special. Christians are all saved. So they are special people, royal race, kingly race. What do they mean? So the theologians are questioning, what does it mean? I think steward is the good title. That is what every Christian should be baptized. Steward. Not all these useless terms. They sound good. So they keep them like your trophies in a glass case. You know, when you get some trophies, what you do? You go and put in some people put in a suitcase and cover it. Some people put in a glass case in the houses and they keep it. So these titles, put them there. But only one title you carry all the time like a license. You need license all the time when you drive. So you keep license. Your license is nothing but steward. That is the license. So that is what all these theologians are talking about. This is precisely the terminology needed to convey the genuine concern of Christianity for all of God's creation. In fact, the scientific community is already co-opting the term into eco-philosophy, and the church must face the challenge of preserving it and presenting it within the context of an ecological theology, ecotheology. Actually, we are developing this stewardship concept in the framework of ecotheology, isn't it? Right now we are discussing. So that is what theologians around the world want to do. Because in a secular world, already there is a philosophy known as eco-philosophy or ecosophy. That is the word many people use, ecosophy or ecological philosophy or deep ecology. So these are all the similar terms. But now the scientists are telling in the civic community and in the social realm, already they have gone to a deeper discussion how to care for Mother Earth. Then why church is not doing anything? So for that purpose they created eco-spirituality and eco-theology, environmental ethics. So actually it is a good counterforce. I shouldn't call a counterforce. It is just a complementary force to ecosophy or deep ecology principle. So we are actually coming integral in the form of dialogue, the science and the religion. On our side, ecotheology, on their side, ecosophy or ecological philosophy. So this is a really complementary effort indeed. We do not believe that we may take a reductionist approach to this stewardship. However, such as the common tendency to consider tithing as fulfillment of Christian stewardship. Biblical stewardship is more complex and complete. It involves the responsible care for all God's creation. You know what? People have been talking about stewardship for the past 2000 years. Yes, especially for the past 500 years. Very often, stewardship. But too often, it was associated with paying money for the church. They were telling you should practice your stewardship in tithing. See the word tithing? Tithing means paying money. Usually it is very common in Protestant churches, no? They call it stewardship. You should give 10% to the church. Now Catholics also involved, you should pay at least 5% to the church. That's called tithing. That's called stewardship. Too often they mixed up stewardship with paying money to the priest and to the church and to the institution. That is what the disaster. So they never explained what stewardship in real terms. They took the reductionist, they reduced to paying money, which is known as the tithing. So that is how we polluted. Even the stewardship word we polluted. Not only we polluted land, water, air, life, we polluted also stewardship role by just, okay, give money to the church. That is sad. So we need to bring that word back to its original sense. Biblical stewardship is more complex and more complete. It involves the responsible care for all God's creation. Here, all the 2.2 billion people are stewards. They should practice it, they should talk about it, they should know it. Because everybody is using energy, water, transportation. Everybody consumes. Everybody uses land. Everybody does agrarian practices, agriculture. So they are all doing. So they should practice stewardship role with the responsibility, faithfulness, and accountability when they use energy, when they use water, when they use transport, also when they buy, and also when they construct houses, churches, schools, hospitals. At last, when they plow the land, don't put chemicals. Don't kill soil. Don't mix chemicals in the water. Don't pollute. I think agriculture produces enormous amount of pollution, second to transport. Transportation is the largest producer of poison in the atmosphere. The second is agriculture. So don't think agricultural people are saints. They are destroyers because their practices are unsustainable. Especially from 1960, when Green Revolution taught us to put chemical input. So it became disaster. So that's why I'm calling you, we should make agrarian theology. What God is teaching. What God is saying about agricultural practices. God is giving a lot of lessons in the first 2 chapters of Genesis. One is till it and keep it, 2:15. Use sustainable practices in agriculture. Today India is 80 to 85% are agriculturalists. Many people committed suicide, especially Madhya Pradesh leads in the suicide, farmer suicide. And then comes Karnataka, and then comes Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra. 3 lakh plus farmers committed suicide between 1994 to 2014. 3 lakh. Because there was no agrarian theology. When farmers face crisis, when there is a crop failure, when there is no rain, they come to the priest or any religion leaders. So I feel so sad. I don't know what to do. If Christian theology has produced agrarian theology, what God is telling them during this kind of crisis, people would have not committed suicide. Unfortunately, we didn't provide them agrarian theology. So far, we have never made agrarian theology. So they are left, they committed suicide. So today, agrarian practices, we have to encourage them to go for sustainable farming, like organic farming, not to kill, not to exert violence on animals. Agrarian theology means it includes everything: plowing the land, farming, animal husbandry, shepherding, fishing, food gathering, marine and forest resources, and also butchering, cutting animals. So all these things are included agrarian theology. You should kill an animal in a less stress environment. The animal shouldn't know that you are killing. One cut, finished. Not going on cutting and animal is suffering. No, that is not right. If you want to kill a buffalo, go for a latest technology. One shot, that's it. Not like taking a crowbar and hitting. Our pigs suffer so much. We should find out a new technology which can kill an animal in a less stress environment. Yeah. So this all comes in agrarian practices. See how many challenges we have. We just close our eyes. So many things, areas we can bring Christian theology or Christian stewardship into play. Each Christian must consider the implication of an ecological theology for their life. Application of ecological concepts is possible in diverse fields of employment and personal interest. In the social sciences, a vast amount of theoretical and practical literature is being written to enable a thorough ecological approach to human issues. In other words, science is giving us a lot of opportunities to integrate for our own practices in agricultural sector, land sector, consumption sector, transportation and energy use. A lot of research has been done. Only we need to bring it and make a theology out of it. God wants this. God really, because a lot of resources you can find in the Bible. In everything you can find resource from the Bible. And you can make a theology. Theology means God wants you to do this. That is theology. God is telling you, this is how you should cultivate. This is how you should travel. That is theology. So when theology says something, people will follow 100%. In Jesus' parable of the steward, that means the shrewd steward, he made it clear that the steward is accountable to the master for his stewardship. Give me an account of your management. Luke 16:2. The consistent teaching of the stewardship passages is that faithfulness is the essential requirement. Luke 12:42, 16:10, 1 Corinthians 4:2. Last time we read 1 Corinthians 4:1. This is 4:2. What does it say? Now it is required that those who have been given a trust, 1 Corinthians chapter 4:2. Now it is required that those who have been given a trust or stewardship must prove faithful. Yes. You have been given stewardship. Now it is time to prove. That is called accountability. So again, I want to tell you, each Christian is marked by three characteristics: responsibility, faithfulness, accountability. Stanley Hurwas, 1981, in his book has pointed out that nature seldom tells what we ought to do, but often tells what we are doing is inappropriate. He is telling, in other words, that nature will not tell you what to do, but it will tell you what not to do. Yes, that is what right now it is telling you. Don't pollute atmosphere, don't pollute water bodies, don't pollute land, don't harm creatures, don't cut down trees, etc., etc. An ecological perspective in which Christians see themselves as steward ecologists, or that term I explained before, what is that? ESE, okay, challenges us to accurately assess our lives, ministries, and relationships in the social and physical environment in order to see if what we are doing is inappropriate. Again, I want to read it for you. An ecological perspective in which Christians see themselves as steward ecologists challenges us to accurately assess our lives, ministries, and relationships in the social and physical environment in order to see if what we are doing is inappropriate. We must ask ourselves the big question: have we been faithful stewards of God's creation? One more time I want to repeat. This is the question every day you should ask before going to sleep. It's a kind of examination of your consciousness. You should educate your people in the parish. Ask them before going to sleep. Ask this question: have we been faithful stewards of God's creation? Thank you.